Hello, hello. Welcome to Ashton College's live online info session for our Education Assistant Diploma program. I'm Matthew. I'll be your host for today. We're joined by Aneta, the instructor for this program, Rika, who will be handling all the technical stuff while the session is happening to keep things from breaking, and Rita, who's going to be here to handle all of our admissions questions for us. We're going to kick things off with Rita giving us an overview of the admissions for this
Thank you so
program.
much, Matthew. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Rita. I am the admissions coordinator for Ashton College. My business hours are Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I can be reached at 604-891-1249 or via email at info@ashtoncollege.ca. I'm going to speak shortly and briefly about the admission requirements and our upcoming intakes. The admission requirements for this program are a minimum of a high school diploma with transcripts, to be 19 years of age at the start of the program, and the English language proficiency test if required. Please visit our policy on admissions to get more information, or again, like I said, please feel free to call me anytime or email me. Also, prior to your practicum, and this is for this upcoming intake, April 12th, you would need, prior to your practicum, to provide a clear criminal record search for the vulnerable sector, a tuberculosis test, and a certificate of health. Again, please feel free to call me to get more information regarding these requirements. Our next intake is April 12th. It is a full-time intake. It is live online. It is April 12th until February 18th. The webinars will be held Tuesday and Thursday from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Our admission, our application fee is $200 for domestic students, $300 for international students. Our tuition fee is $6,900 for domestic students and $8,625 for our international students. Our textbook fees are approximately $875. Again, I can always be reached at 604-891-1249 or via email at info@ashtoncollege.ca. Thank you and have a great session.
All right, thank you for that, Rita. Always a pleasure to have you. Aneta, how are you doing today?
Hey, thank you for having me, Matthew.
Hey,
great.
glad to have you. So to kick things off, how about we talk a little bit about your background, experiences, what's brought you to teaching with us?
Of course, I have a long experience, more than 30 years in education. My first
wow.
was in early childhood education. And I worked as a kindergarten teacher before deciding to continue my education and professional development. So I took a lot of courses and studied in Austria, and later immigrating to Canada. I raised 4 children and was self-employed briefly before returning to education with focus on autism and applied behavioral analysis. I spent the past maybe 15 years learning about autism, ABA, assistive methods and accommodations in a school setting mainly. And currently, I'm very interested in transitioning to adulthood for diverse learners, especially autistic adolescents and adults, and focus on generalizing and maintenance of social and independent skills. I worked as a special education assistant, behavioral interventionist, and respite worker, and currently, I'm an associate researcher with the Ontario Tech University Educational Informatics Lab, and working on my graduate research with focus on the role of computer-mediated communications in social engagement of autistic adolescents and adults, and hoping to continue my research as a doctoral student this fall. And I am an instructor at Ashton College Education Assistant Continued Education Program. and actually have a personal connection because some 15 years ago, my husband graduated the immigration consultant program, and he stayed close to his instructors, had such a great experience. And yeah, so a small personal connection to the college.
Oh, that's really nice. I actually didn't know that. And
Yeah,
yeah, no, definitely sounds like a lot of experience. The way you describe it, rumor has it you've even had time to sleep.
yeah, it's when you do what you love,
Yeah.
it feels different. Yeah.
All right. So, I'm assuming that most people tuning in today have an idea, but for everyone's benefit, what is an education assistant and how does their role change differ from a classroom teacher?
Um, it is a great question, and really what I can talk about is their background and training differs, and therefore also their responsibilities in an educational setting. And the role of an education assistant is really to assist students and the teachers in the educational and also community setting, especially as students grow older and we're talking about life skills and work experience and so far. But EAs generally work under the supervision of a learning support teacher or the general classroom teacher. And their role is also commonly defined by the needs of the students they're supporting. And how their roles differ, as I mentioned, it does have to do with the training and the background, the nature and the scope of their responsibilities, which is related to that educational background. And for example, an EA training, as in our program as well at Ashton, would focus specifically on diverse learners and specific exceptionalities that we commonly see in a classroom, especially, as well as assistive practices, accommodations in the K to 12 educational setting, while teachers training would commonly focus on educational pedagogies and lesson planning and classroom management. So teachers are responsible for example, identifying learning goals, designing, implementing curriculum, and classroom management, while an EA would be typically responsible for implementing individualized learning programs, supporting specific group of students, or supporting the teacher in the general classroom. So their role largely depends on the needs of the school and the students they're supporting, but definitely a lot of differences in the roles.
Okay, yeah, no, definitely seems like they sort of do it. They sort of like work together to get the best out of everything, and because classroom environments can be very chaotic, so like it definitely need to rely on each other, work together to make sure everyone gets the most out of what they're capable of doing.
Absolutely, it's a
Work with
yeah.
that. How
Yeah.
would you describe a day in the life of an education assistant?
Um, I mentioned earlier, it would really largely depend on the needs of the students and
Hmm.
the teacher and the environment. It would also depend on the age and is it the elementary school or secondary school setting? Those programs commonly largely differ. And for example, in some cases, the EA would be assigned to one student and may support that student for a large period of the school day, or maybe even a large portion of their K to 12 education. While in other cases, EAs may divide their time between several students or classrooms, and their roles would differ. I can share a typical day in my experience, and I worked mostly in a secondary school setting, even though I have experience in elementary school, K to 7, grade 7.
Hmm.
But a typical day supporting a high school student with high support needs the student will arrive. I would usually arrive 8 o'clock at school, and students were expected by 8:40 in a high school setting. So I would use those first 40 minutes to meet with other team members, and we usually will have a meeting as well and discuss the program of the day. In an elementary school, those first hours of the day, first when we arrive, spent to really go over the day and plan with the classroom teacher or the learning support teacher. And then depending on the student's schedule, we'll either prepare to go into the community for work experience, that's very common in high school setting, or support the student in a general classroom if that is their program. Also working individually with the student on their program. And because of my ABA programs, I would often implement ABA programs in a separate block, learning support block. So it is really very varied and different from school to school, student age, and the demand at the moment.
Okay, yeah, no, definitely sounds like the short answer to that question of typical day is what you mean by typical. Uh,
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, yeah, because like definitely sounds like you've had like one experience of it that's very different if somebody's primarily worked with like younger students or like much earlier on in like their primary or junior years, because it sounds like it's mostly secondary or like intermediate is your background. And that sort of rolls into the next question I was about to ask about if EAs work with high school students too.
Um,
Yes, your
Absolutely.
proof.
And it is very, very interesting at that age, because you start to have a better and better idea of how their life would look like after K to 12.
Mhm.
And you start working towards that. And it is very exciting and interesting. We work closely to families and student support, home support teams. And that transitioning period is like amazing period of the school experience, and that support the intervention for those students.
Yeah. Okay. Next question on my list today. And I get the sense that you're going to answer some of these before I ask them the more we go along, which I'm all for. Um, so definitely sounds like EAs work closely with teachers. Obviously, you've mentioned working closely with like other support individuals. I'm assuming this includes like administrative roles within the school itself, like the actual administrators, guidance counselors. You work with everybody.
Absolutely, and that may be one of my favorite aspects of the job. That we do commonly work in large multidisciplinary teams, and a common IP meeting would have 10 plus members. And we have occupational therapists, psychologists, speech language pathologists, home team, as I mentioned earlier. So behavioral consultants, often family and anyone involved behavior interventions from the home team. So, and at school, of course, we work with teachers, and in high school setting, that would be for every classroom, that would be a different teacher. So we'll discuss with them how the student would be best accommodated in their classroom. And there are definitely a lot of discussions and collaborations, and it is a team effort for sure.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Obviously, like hearing you talk about these experiences sounds like you really love this role, really love the work you get to do. I'm about to ask you what might be a painful question since you seem to love most everything about what was your absolute favorite thing about this job?
Uh, So I do have an answer for that, and it's really working directly with the students, and that's what we get to do. That while teachers work with the whole classroom and they do have a lot more limited time one-on-one with their students, we get that opportunity to work directly and to spend a lot of time with our students, and that's why often EAs are the go-to school personnel for observations and for feedback, and really, really invaluable team member in designing and successfully implementing support. So it's that rapport you get to build with the student, and that personal connection and direct contact is definitely my favorite part.
All right. Okay. So obviously, I get the sense that like there might not be a firm answer for this, but what sort of personality traits would help an education assistant hopeful be effective in the workplace or succeed in this capacity?
This is actually a really great question and something I address in all of my courses, teaching future EAs and in also continued education courses, and which is um, understanding one's own strengths and how those strengths would complement a student's program is so important. And my opinion is that all personality traits are strengths that could be a great addition to any support team. But it is important to know those strengths and understand how they can be most effectively applied. And so we can be our best selves, and we also get to enjoy what we're doing, and have that sense of accomplishment. Just knowing that we contribute our best. And you guessed right. There's no personality trait that's better than other, in my opinion. It's just, to me, the important is knowing those strengths, being able to communicate them, and being able to apply them in most effective way. So this is something that I often address in my classes and encourage students to really pay attention to what feels right. Do they enjoy more games, or do they enjoy observing, or observing and recording is a big part of the job of an EA. So maybe this is arts and crafts, or just doing hands-on activities. There's so many, singing, and somebody who is more artistic, and it's just everything has great purpose and could be utilized effectively in a learning support team.
Okay, yeah. Definitely sounds like you there is something that you can contribute. There is a way to like stand out. You don't have to be a specific person because especially like if you're working individually with students, like a lot of it is also probably just being able to like find a good fit, it sounds like. So, yeah, of course there's room for everybody at that point because not every student is going to want a certain personality type working with them or or working with them. So obviously we've talked a lot about like the exciting parts, the parts you've loved, the rewarding portions. What are some of the more challenging aspects of working as an EA?
Um, Maybe something that relates to your previous question too, something that I can think OEAs have in common is that desire to help and that desire to make a difference in the life of their students. And this may translate into what is challenging as well. Is this just depending on the caseload? And if I was to generalize, um, it's working with vulnerable children and youth requires that ability for compassion, but also self-care in order to prevent maybe compassion fatigue or burnout. And that's something we address also in working with future EAs is um, really knowing themselves and taking care of themselves. And this is a great way to really ensure that you can enjoy your work and assist students. And self-care would
Hmm.
be something that I would emphasize.
Okay, yeah. So we're going to pivot a little bit. So we're doing this course online, obviously. Online learning teaching, not as new as it was for a lot of people as it was about a year ago. Still kind of new though for some. How would you describe your approach to online teaching and like your style?
Uh, I'm actually very passionate about digital technology and
Mhm.
online learning, and I went back and took my bachelor's in adult education and digital technology. So I study how to teach online starting 2016, I believe. So that was
Oh, wow.
before its times, and my master's is also related to digital remote learning delivery and autism. And everything I do is through the lens of autism. But online learning has amazing affordances, and I believe is an inclusive environment that provides such abundance of affordabilities, such accessibility, flexibility, especially for people that have careers or families, or just allows that flexibility. You have access to recorded sessions. So my goal as an instructor is to take advantage of digital technology and everything it has to offer, and just engage students to delivering information using variety of ways. And also, um, I mentioned that I do believe online environment is very inclusive and allows that user control that can feel empowering and provide opportunities that are not available in face-to-face environment. So I always try to encourage and support my students to take full advantage of those opportunities. It's important to add that digital competencies are a big part of any EA's work. And especially now that there is also so much of the K to 12 programming and in secondary education, even more delivered distance remotely. So for future EA any future EA would greatly benefit from learning online and
Mhm.
improve their digital competence. And
Yeah.
that is my approach to empower, encourage, engage, um, and just assist in their process of learning.
Right on. Yeah, no, especially like that your point about like engaging with digital and how it's going to be bigger. I'm betting that like the amount of like online learning, digital technology probably wasn't even on people's mind like even 5, 10 years ago compared to where we have to be now, quite frankly. Uh,
Exactly.
yeah. So this one, my next question is a bit meatier. So looking a bit at the program outline, can you give us an overview of some of the things that we're going to cover?
Uh, that question, I will
Oh,
try to be brief because
yeah.
I could talk all day about it, but
Okay, yep.
just in general.
Yeah, general's perfect. We have admissions people for like heavier questions.
Specifics, yeah, and it's the program, the EA program is really comprehensive at the college, and it's designed to prepare EAs um, for the with applicable skills that will help them feel prepared and ready to work in any school setting. So we are talking about introduction to psychology and human development. Of course, there are a number of courses that address diverse learning needs and special education topics. And there is autism awareness and support needs are also addressed. Um, Addressing challenging behaviors and other critical skill in assisting students in a school setting. So the program is very comprehensive, and I think it will, there is a field practicum as well that gives students the opportunity to apply their knowledge in a natural setting, in a school setting, while still being supported by our staff. So we really we're there every step of the way, and we try to introduce students to many different aspects of what it means to be an EA and help them feel ready for the workplace.
Yeah, right on. Okay. So building on with this momentum with all the so pulling back a bit more, obviously like there's a lot, it's comprehensive, we're covering everything. Live online learning, great skill to have. What are your expectations for students in an online classroom?
Hmm. I mentioned earlier, I see my role as a facilitator
Okay.
their learning, and especially when working with adult learners, my hope is always that my students would reflect on their individual learning needs, which is um, really for them to engage with the learning material in a way that is relevant to them. And I encourage that active communication and taking advantage of available resources. We do provide many resources and materials and opportunities to engage with instructor as well. So I begin every live tutorial engaging in a discussion about the learning process so far in the course, answering any questions to allow students to make those personal connections between their personal experience and the learning experience, the learning material. And we do learn together. It's a dynamic and a very exciting process that I do love, and hope that my students would embrace that learning process and enjoy themselves.
Okay. I gotta ask, do you have a favorite part of the course that you're hoping to be that you're looking forward to teaching? Or is it all your favorite?
I do. I mentioned, I believe, a generalization transitioning, and it is really the case studies and real life examples and connecting that learning and practice. I always enjoy, and I try to incorporate that in all my classes. And I have a vast experience that I like to share and make those connections. And I always encourage students to also share their own experiences and making those connections between what we learn and what we have experienced, and maybe seeing our experience through a different light, through that new knowledge. That is the best part of learning. I enjoy that a lot.
Okay, right on. So, what do you think students then are going to enjoy the most once they've like graduated from our program, they start entering the workforce? Like, what do you hope they look forward to the most?
Um, I it's difficult to guess for others. I remember clearly that I'm always excited to work in a school environment. It is a unique environment that is really one of the kind. It's a great sense of accomplishment in that role of supporting students directly. So I think that students will enjoy, really enjoy in working in a K to 12 school environment. But also, I know some of our students continue in a home team setting and other support settings. And there is that sense of doing something meaningful and doing something that makes a difference, a positive difference in someone else's life and in those families' lives. That is definitely something that the students
Okay,
will enjoy.
all right. Okay, so obviously this sounds like it can be a really rewarding experience for everyone involved, like what they put into it. What do you think the current like sort of market is, and like where is the demand for EAs right now?
Um, My observation in the past almost 2 decades is that need has been increasing with times, and support needs of learning of diverse learners are better understood, and that leads to that increase in demand for trained support staff and people that understand diverse learners and exceptional learners. And special education professionals are key players in ensuring that equity and inclusion in a school setting. So I believe that the demand for years will continue.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Okay, so we're going to ask these next couple questions looking at my list are big philosophical ones, probably ones that you could go on for a very long time about. Like we could give you an entire hour to give you a full answer, so answer them however you please. So next big one is like, do you think that EAs will be as important and necessary in the future, or could they ever be replaced by technology?
Uh, I believe EAs would absolutely remain an essential worker in accommodating the learning needs of diverse, exceptional learners. And I, I do not see how technology could fulfill that role. Um, just because it's such a dynamic and individualized nature of our work that's highly dependent on, and no two students are alike. I'm confident that the role of EAs will only become more and more central to ensuring quality of education.
Yeah, I can imagine because greatest technology is like there's still a lot of things that I don't think humans will ever be beat at, and definitely the adaptability and being able to cope with changes, like and be like active support. That's something I don't think technology will probably catch up ever. Like computers
Exactly.
are great at following a process, they can't not follow a process.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, but next big question, big idea question. How has the workplace changed for education assistants over the years? Any major shifts between like when you started working in this field to like the current?
Uh, So this is interesting, but the first thing that comes to mind is technology, and technology as an assistive tool, and how much is implemented in support of many of our learners, and we use it for to implement schedules as speech device, and it's just. I think iPads are now a big part of any
Hmm.
of our students' programs. So that is definitely, and that's what I was mentioning earlier too, the importance of digital competencies for an EA. Google Classrooms are now common. They were common before COVID as well. It was convenient for teachers, and it's just an effective learning tool. So technology would be for once, and the other thing would be the number of EAs has changed drastically over the years. So the numbers keep growing, and I've noticed both trends, and I expect both trends to continue into the future.
More EAs, more technology as a tool. Yeah,
Uh,
I can definitely see that. Like,
it's,
definitely, like it's gotten to the point where like tech literacy is like so like everywhere that like it's just from the default now. Like I remember, yeah, that's a sidetrack, not the point. So uh, okay, we've actually pretty much we have answered this because you've talked about this as a transition, but you but do you have students who are like more students who are brand new to the industry, like this is their first career, or perhaps more students that are transitioning from something that's very different?
In my experience, it is more common that people transition to a career as an EA. I've seen high school students continuing as EA, and also people with transitioning to a new career. So I wouldn't say it's a trend for different anybody who loves children and has that desire to help and enjoys working in that school setting. So I would say people from all walks of life.
All right. Okay. So since this is a transition, what would you recommend people do as a starting point or something like to see if this is for them? Like, is there volunteer opportunities? What would be my best bet?
Um, Again, and this is my personal experience, and I had such a great experience working and volunteering with the North Shore Special Olympics. It's my local organization, but Special Olympics is in every in most cities. It's an absolutely incredible organization. I worked as a coach and a program volunteer, a head coach for the rhythmic gymnastics team. Special Olympics provides many opportunities for that community engagement, making a difference. And also, it is structured in a manner that is very similar in some cases to the work of an EA. So I would definitely recommend just checking out your local Special Olympics organization. And it is a great experience. And also it would give a good sense of what working as an EA may be like.
Okay, yeah, definitely sounds like a great place to start, actually. And Special Olympics is like just great in general. Yeah. Okay, so last couple questions are going to start wrapping up my list. If you're watching and you have a question live, I'm just going to take a moment to say you can type in the chat box. We have a Q&A box. You can like type that. We'll do our best to answer them live. If you're watching over Zoom, if you're watching over Facebook, you can comment. We'll do our best to like answer them here once we get through the little delay. And if you're watching in the future, hello. Don't worry, we'll get to you down the line. Okay, but yeah, no. If you are watching this live, feel free to speak up. Okay. As for my next question, now that we're back on track, is there anything else that excites you or that you find particularly interesting that we haven't touched upon yet?
Um, I think I mentioned we talked about working with teams, but I would love to emphasize that aspect of an EA work, and it is very fulfilling to work with people who share that same passion and dedication to learning, and in my experience, it creates such a positive work and a professional development environment, and that ability to share your experience with people who have similar experience. And I find that I always learn more, and you just have access to so many incredible people that you can collaborate with and engage and just brainstorm student programs, professional development, and other experiences. This is really one of my other favorite aspects of working in a school
Mhm.
environment. Amazing people to work with.
Right on, right on. Okay. Do you have any final thoughts to share with us before we wrap? Now that I'm at the like list of these questions, anything you want to say before we formally open the floor up?
Um, I mentioned my long relationship through my husband with the college, and I have such a positive experience working at the college. It's a great working environment with everyone being so responsive with anything that pops up. So it's easy to reach a person and reach out and discuss. And it's just a great environment. And this is something I wanted to mention. As part of the session, it's similar as I mentioned, K to 12 school environment, but any learning environment is conducive of that, building those great relationships of learning from each other and collaborating and creating that community of learning, community of practice. And this is something I wanted to mention too for anyone that considers continued or change of career and continuing their education. I see myself as a lifelong learner. You can see I'm always onto something. I think it's a great experience and great opportunity to just continue to grow professionally and personally.
Okay, right on. All right, that's the conclusion of my big list of questions. Doesn't look like we have anything from our Zoom audience yet. If you're watching over Zoom, again, just type it out. We'll answer it to the best of our ability. Rika, anything from the Facebook crowd?
Guys, yeah, we do have one question from Facebook Live. Um, so someone is asking, do I need to learn American Sign Language or Braille in order to become an EA? Will this be covered in the program?
So this is not covered in the program, and this is again on case-to-case basis. I personally took the American Sign Language program, and I did not have any occasion to use it in a school setting, so I just took it because of my personal interest. And this is definitely something that would be, it could benefit some teams, but it's not common in my experience, but and not part of our program.
All right, thanks for answering that. Otherwise, doesn't look like we've picked up anything else. So it looks like I'm going to bring this session to a close. Aneta, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
If you are watching in the future and have a big burning question, or you're one of those people who might have tuned in, immediately close this and then thought about your question after that, happens. Don't worry, you can email us anytime at info@ashtoncollege.ca. That is info@ashtoncollege.ca. Or you can call us at 604-891-1249, 604-891-1249. Or we have a toll-free number, 1-866-759-6006. That would be everything. Thank you if you're joining us. If you're joining in the future, hello and thank you. Yeah. Aneta, a pleasure. Rika, thank you.